Right, good evening, everyone. I thank you and welcome you here, Soul Journeys Radio on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. And for our regular listeners, you're like, oh my God, I hope we're not stuck with just Christie. It's the last Wednesday, and Princess Leah LaChapelle is supposed to be here. And yes, I love her and miss her too, but sometimes life happens, and it's her birthday. So don't tell anyone I told you, but everybody go wish her a happy birthday. She's 29 again today. So anyway, so that's what's going on. And I decided when we realized that, oops, it's her show day and it's her birthday, I'll take the night off. And I left it up to you all, our listeners, in the group, Soul Journeys Radio group at Facebook, what topic we should do. And if you are a regular listener of the show, you do know I'm still battling that I'm not good enough, fear-based programming. And, I did part one. I called it Healing Simplified 101, Perfect Health Made Easy. And we did part one, actually, I think it was like April, maybe 23rd. And then we had part two scheduled. And then there were just, I thought, more important guests and such coming up. So I just kept pushing this back. And this actually, if the calendar went as is, wouldn't have happened till September. But with Leah's birthday, we decided, well, all right, I'll just do it today. And, you all gave me some suggestions. So I'm going to go with that for this show. We're going to talk about how emotions correlate to healing and disease, what is MS and how to heal from it, and other, quote, neurodegenerative autoimmune diseases, unquote. We also got some questions about stress, depression, and anxiety, which I'll be covering. And somebody else asked about tips for quitting smoking. So I'll talk about that, quitting or reducing smoking, tips and herbs that may or may not work for you. And in the meantime, after I scheduled this, I did get some questions about heart disease and diabetes and digestion. So I'm going to do my best to tackle all of this. Before we begin, of course, any of the information I give you here tonight, I don't know, I need to have one of those disclaimers memorized, but this is just my opinion based on my experience. This is not intended to substitute advice from a qualified medical or health practitioner or your doctor. I'm going to try not to bore you with all of the scientific terminology and such. We get enough of that everywhere we go. Oh, it's the clusters of dendrites, and it's neurodegenerative autoimmune disease, and yeah, that all sounds really great and beautiful. You put a nice little package on it, whether it's a name with 15 syllables or, it's like the bigger the better, right? The most dangerous. And, when you really look at what MS is, the truth is they really don't even know. Or if they know, they're not telling us. They want us to believe that, well, it's an inflammatory disease characterized by the myelin sheath of the neurons damaged in the brain and spine, and we really have no idea how it happens. It's just the system hates itself and wants to attack itself for no good reason, right? They'll tell you that, there's no cure for it. And in fact, they'll even tell you that they don't even really know what causes it entirely. However, I would like to point this out. The United States is one of the only countries on the planet that even acknowledges the term autoimmune disease like MS or Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, etc. Of course, it's also categorized as demyelination or myelination. I'm probably saying that wrong, but we're going to go into that and talk about that. But I would like to bring this up. Cambridge University, England, Punjabi, clearly established that there is no such thing as MS or autoimmune diseases, but rather it is a misdiagnosis of a true infection, brought about by a virus, nanobacteria, or parasites. And I would like to talk about that a little bit more later. Right now, I'm just going to pose the question, could these viruses be a mind virus? I don't know. Could they be something in the vaccines? Could it really be something environmental? In fact, they are finding out that there are certain, or there are higher concentrations of diagnoses of MS the further away from the equator you are, and localized in certain areas. Like in some places, they actually called it an epidemic. Meaning that there are, higher proportions of a certain dis-ease in certain locations. So while they will recognize that it could be environmental, it could be a virus or an infection, or it could be genetics, I would like to, we talked about this on the show before. When it comes to genetics, first of all, I'd like to point out that remember, we're getting this information from the experts, the scientists, right? And genetic would imply that it has something to do with our DNA, right? Being in our DNA. However, they also refer to 96% of our DNA as junk. Junk DNA, meaning I think that's a pretty good indicator that they really have no idea, or again, maybe they're just not telling us. But if 96% of it is junk and they want to just, liken each of these diseases, due to something that, again, they don't understand 96% of it, I think it's kind of silly to put all of our faith in that. So obviously there is much more going on here. My personal belief is that all disease begins on an energetic level. And, we've talked about disease here before. What is dis-ease? It's simply the opposite of ease. So what's helped me in my life is to find out, what am I not at ease with? So, yeah, could it be your environment? Could it be, something emotional or spiritual, or, could it be high factors of stress and such, which we'll talk about more of that. But getting back to the, scientific part that I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on, what they do know with MS is that our myelin sheath is being stripped. And the myelin sheath is basically electrically insulating material that it's a layer that wraps around the axon of a neuron. So what that does essentially is insulate the nerves and allows for faster communications between the cells, to increase the speed, also electrical resistance as far as preventing electrical current from leaving the axon. We are electrical beings, and a lot of things that we're taught as far as diet and such are actually anti-nature, anti-what we are. For example, when it comes to MS, again, the damage in the myelin sheath typically occurs in the brain and the spine. And our brain is actually 60% fat. The myelin is, or the dry mass of the myelin is 70 to 85% lipids. And I know normally when we hear the term lipid, we just think it's fat. And true, fat is an aspect of lipids, in fact, very high in fat, but it also contains sterols, waxes, and vitamins like A, D, E, and K. You've all heard of fat-soluble vitamins, right? But it also, it's necessary not only to protect our cells, to protect the electrical impulse, but it also transfers nutrients and harbors nutrients like potassium, calcium, and even salt. Check that out. Salt. Yeah, I just looked at the chat. We're electrical beans. Yes. Electrical green beans. Okay, and I am seeing a question on the chat. Essential oils, do you find them helpful in raising your megahertz, your body energy? Absolutely. I have talked about that a little more in depth previously in other shows, so I'm going to put that question aside. So when we get to, some of the solutions, I will try to answer that more in depth. So now what I really want to share with you is, first of all, getting back to the fat. So the lipids, excuse me, the fats also contain monoglycerides, diglycerides, triglycerides, and phospholipids. And again, they are there to store energy, signal messages, and for cell membrane structures. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of somebody who says, oh, my triglycerides are high, and I need to take this drug, right? Like, same thing with cholesterol. Oh, my cholesterol level is high, and I need to take this statin drug that's going to lower my cholesterol. Lowering these things by drugs is actually extremely dangerous. In fact, for every, let's say you're on statin drugs, for every point that you are able to lower your cholesterol with the drugs, you increase your risk of death by 36%. So yeah, they've actually done studies, New England Journal of Medicine and such, and every single patient experiences this. Not only that, liver damage, joint pain, muscle atrophy, wasting, heart failure, depression. It stops the production of CoQ10 and, neuropathy, of course, numbness in your hands and feet. So I'm bringing this up because I'm suggesting that there is much more to MS than what we're taught about. So being that we are electrical beings, it kind of makes sense that when there are things in our environment that are interfering with it, whether you have your TV on all the time, vibroacoustic disease, those lower ELF noises and such we've talked about with Sydney Ross Singer on the show. Hang on. I hear the music. It is that time, but we're going to be right back, okay? All right, welcome back, and thanks for joining us here tonight. Soul Journeys Radio on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. I'm going to try to talk to you about Basic Health Simplified, and what we are discussing right now is MS. And some of the information that is put out there for us, as well as my personal experiences. I'm going to try to stay on target. And I already feel myself jumping around all over the place, but I'm sure, or I am at least going to attempt to tie it all together at the end. So I started talking to you about fats and the stopping the production of CoQ10. And what's really interesting is that, again, where is that stored? In fat. Yet a lot of these diets that people will purport, mainstream doctors, including natural doctors, they tell you to stay away from fat. But it is oh so essential, being again 60% of your brain, 70 to 85% of the myelin sheath, and of course, I don't want to underestimate the power of hydration as well. 40% of that is water. And of course, 75-80% of our body is too. So I discussed on a previous show that when we are dehydrated, not getting enough of this stuff, what happens when the myelin sheath starts to deteriorate, some of the symptoms we might feel, initially you'll feel tired, you'll feel foggy, you might even have some thinking problems. You might feel a little bit emotional. You might feel maybe even a loss of balance or weakness. And, what's really interesting about this, and really cool that somebody brought up stress, wanted me to talk about that tonight, that's also some of the symptoms of stress and also the symptoms, the early symptoms of MS. So obviously, the sensations can increase depending on how long we are starving ourselves or, not hydrating ourselves properly or not getting enough, good, healthy fats. So some of the symptoms I'll continue as far as MS, clumsiness, lack of coordination. You might even feel like some numbness, some aching, some stabbing or burning pains, or even kind of like electrical vibrating type pains. I had that quite a bit. Bladder issues, difficulty walking because of the muscle weakness or the spasms, or maybe even the balance problems. And again, this all boils back to being electrical beings and not having the proper fuel to support that, right? Now, I want to emphasize here that there is more than one way to heal. I would definitely caution anyone who tells you there's only one way, this is the only way. It kind of reminds me of religion. I healed myself, and I'm just one person. There are millions of us out there. I know many of you who are doing it right now, or many of you who already have. And we all did it differently. What works for us? So I would really like to emphasize that during your healing process, learn to trust yourself, trust what feeds you, what feels good, what makes you feel good. I mean, I could bore you for 2 hours and talk about, you shouldn't drink soda. No, duh. Really? or Doritos, it's high acid, and duh. Okay, we know that. So what I'm getting at when I'm saying trust yourself and what feels good, you know how you feel when you eat something living and fresh, okay? When you're feeding your cells and your cells are like, oh my God, thank you so much. I've been starving for so long. And you know what it feels like when you eat dead food. You know, whether it's a McDonald's hamburger and French fries or, a fake strawberry shake or whatever it is. So, work on trusting yourself. In fact, I had a really good reminder of that lesson just literally right here last night on the show. In fact, for some reason, I've been eating, I guess we'll say 95% vegan, I don't know, for a couple years now. And I've never really been a mushroom eater and never was an egg eater. But for some reason, in the last couple weeks, I was craving mushrooms and eggs. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. I don't eat mushrooms. I don't eat eggs. What's going on? And then we found out that my chromium, zinc, and manganese were just a little bit low. And guess what? Eggs and mushrooms are high in chromium, manganese, and zinc. So that was just another little reminder of my lesson to trust myself. I think we brought it up on the show a little bit last night where, Bach flower remedies or even aromatherapists, they will tell you, it doesn't even matter. If you're drawn to this or this particular crystal or this particular, scent, whatever it is, it doesn't matter why. All of these specifics, whether it's, this is good for the dendrites, or this is good for my peripheral ganglia, and who cares? Just listen, learn to trust that voice that it is, we can get caught up in the specifics and the logic and the left brain and, I have to understand all of this. And if I don't know that my liver stores B12, iron, A, D, E, K, CoQ10, if we don't know that it makes blood clotting elements and creates digestive fluids and lymph, of which there's 4 times more lymph fluid in the body than blood. Or, it's nice to know those things, but we can kind of get lost in it. In fact, I was talking to somebody just today who had brought up all these different diets and all these different doctors, acid alkaline. Some people will say, it has to be this, and all you have to do is drink alkaline water and all of your problems are solved. Okay. He brought up another one called the daylight diet, where I guess if you make sure that you only eat when the sun is out, then all of your problems are going to be solved. We've heard others, if you eat only one fruit for 6 months, all your problem is going to be solved. And, if you take this one herb, all your problems are going to be solved. Well, health is much more than that. It encompasses your entire being. In fact, as a holistic health coach, what is holistic? What does holistic even mean? I'll tell you, it comes from the word healing that has its roots in the Greek word holos. You may have heard holy, that is whole, becoming whole. What healing is wholeness, okay? But not just what you express and experience in your physical life, your physical surroundings. It encompasses our entire essence, so physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental. So you can do the physical left brain stuff all you want, but you're still missing the incorporation of the other 75% of your being, right? So when it comes to helping people holistically, you take the individual into consideration, and you have to realize that all of these physical conditions, no matter what you call it, heart disease, MS, cancer, lupus, diabetes, all they are symptoms. And these names are just labels of a set of symptoms which really all boil down to our malalignment, misalignment with nature. In fact, I think about a week ago, Lisa Coffey sent out a newsletter, and what did she call it? Nature deficit disorder. And I firmly believe that all of these issues stem from nature deficit disorder, I guess. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. But, as I mentioned earlier, that all disease starts on an emotional level. We actually harbor it. We ignore our negative patterns and imbalances and, just go about doing things, staying distracted because, we don't have time for that. We have kids, we have jobs, we have shows to listen to, we have, movies to go see or games to go watch or whatever. So we completely ignore the mental, spiritual, and emotional aspect of our lives. Let's not forget to point out that, emotions have pretty much been labeled disease as it is, right? So, what does that do? Oh my God, I'm not allowed to feel this, so I'm going to suppress my anger and rage and let it eat my liver. I'll show you, right? Or, I'm going to suppress my fear because I'm too busy or I'm, too embarrassed to admit it. So I'm just going to store it in my kidneys. And, the human body is absolutely amazing. Each of our organs correspond to certain emotions. And while we may think that by ignoring it, that it doesn't affect us, we've dealt with it, guess what? Our cells remember that, okay? So I'm just suggesting here that it's less about what specifically you eat as it is how you eat. So when we get caught up with all these things, oh my God, my water isn't alkaline enough, so this is going to kill me. Well, guess what? You are taking on that vibration. That's what you are swallowing, whether it's in your water or your food, or if you're experiencing any guilt. I really shouldn't be eating this chicken because I have to be 80-10-10 vegan and I'm going to heal the world, right? And okay, again, nothing wrong with that. But if you want to eat that chicken or whatever it is, and you're feeling guilt and you're feeling fear and you're feeling shame, guess what? Your body is going to hold on to that. So in the holistic health approach is about the individual taking responsibility for their health, again, not just physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and realizing that all of these pains, all of these physical conditions, whether it's a diagnosis of something or maybe even not, maybe it's just, you're not feeling good, but you haven't really gone to the doctor, you're not really taking any, pharmaceuticals, but you just don't feel good, and oh, well, my dad was that way, so it's genetic. I'll tell you what, when it comes to genetics, we have the power to change our DNA, our genes at any moment. What we are inheriting are lifestyle habits. Okay? That's what we are inheriting. When you grow up in a situation where McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner is normal, 12-pack of Diet Root Beer, or whatever it is, a case of Busch Light, whatever it is, you're going to end up eating and drinking the same thing too. So no wonder you're going to end up with the same dis-ease. But with all of these advancements, allegedly, in modern medicine and science, hasn't anybody ever wondered, why are the disease rates increasing? Why is everybody sicker nowadays? And yeah, sure, we can blame chemtrails, we can blame the Illuminati, we can blame some dumb drug we took when we were 12 years old and didn't know better, we can blame our mercury fillings. There's plenty of things to blame out there, that's for sure. But I'll tell you what, my biggest growth in healing myself was retiring from the blame game, taking responsibility for myself and realizing that and appreciating that I actually needed all of that to make me who I am. So if you are in a situation, maybe you were poisoned by a doctor or even not a doctor or whatever, in some kind of accident where it was somebody else's fault, I would just like to encourage you to consider forgiveness and consider taking a step back and looking at the whole picture to see, if you want to be well, how it's affecting you. Because we can hold on to these things. We can hold on to this baggage forever and ever and ever. We can hold on to it as long as we want to. But if you want to be well, you're going to have to take responsibility for your life, for your health. And, okay, so... wow. All right. I'm not trying to harp or blame or judge anyone. All of this stuff that I'm talking about here tonight, I experienced firsthand. I was number one, Miss Blame Game. Number one, as far as making excuses. Oh, well, they can heal, but I can't. I've done all the best drugs, the best doctors, the best surgeries, and I'm just special. Right? And I've even had people that have come to me to book a session and wanted help with certain issues, but they didn't want to give up their disease. As in anything in life, there's always a payoff. Whether you are sick of some so-called incurable disease or whether you're staying in an abusive relationship, or whatever it is, there is a payoff. So if you can separate from these things, really look in the mirror honestly and decide, well, you know what, maybe you don't want to heal anyways. A lot of people don't when they find out that it's beyond taking a magic pill, but, and it certainly is, but I promise you it is not that hard. We're going to be right back and continue this after this short break. And I just saw in the chat, somebody said they need to be told over and over, getting out of this wheelchair is up to me. I'm ready. So you know what, honey? I will say that for you if that's what it's going to take. Getting out of the wheelchair is up to you. Yes, and you are worthy. And, all of these things we're talking about, I mentioned, blaming other people for our circumstances, etc. We need to stop blaming and judging and shaming and guilting ourselves. That's what it boils down to, ultimately. Okay, so love yourself. You are absolutely perfect and beautiful and worthy. Every single person. Every single one is exactly where they need to be. So You don't need to compare yourself. You don't need to judge yourself. Stop shooting on yourself. Oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be better at this. I should. And you know what? I'm the queen of shooting on myself, okay? So, I'm just saying. All right, so, getting back, I guess, to the question, MS, can you heal MS? The short answer is absolutely yes. And what does that entail? Okay, strengthening your immune system, number one. I mean, first of all, it's called autoimmune disease. And then they give you drugs that do what? They suppress your immune system. Well, duh. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that that is the antithesis of what needs to happen. So we need to strengthen our immune system. How can we do that? Up your antioxidants, vitamin C, you can, that'll help stimulate, strengthen your immune system, your nerve fibers. It'll help reduce pain. It'll help prevent numbness and paralysis and eliminate oxidative stress. And some wonderful ways to do that are delicious ways. Oranges, pineapples, tomatoes, berries, all berries. Berries are absolutely delicious. Cabbage, green peppers, even red peppers like cayenne, potatoes, even herbs like peppermint or chamomile, alfalfa, bok choy, Swiss chard, catnip, nettles, yellow dock, burdock root. I mean, there's tons of choices how you do it. So I'm not going to get up here and tell you, oh, well, you have to eat just specifically this. No, I'm going to give you choices. And you know what? Chances are you might not like 99% of them. And guess what? That's okay. That's the wonderful thing about Mother Nature, is whatever it is that say you don't like lavender. Awesome. Well, guess what? There's neroli. Or you don't like lemon balm. Well, there's basil. Or whatever it is. So there's always choices. Don't limit yourself, like the denial diet, I like to call it. Oh, I'll never be able to have this again. We've talked about this before. Whatever you tell yourself you can never have again, guess what? That's what you're going to focus on. So whether it's drugs, alcohol, pizza, ice cream, gambling, shopping, whatever it is that people are addicted to, that's why, stopping it rarely works. I mean, the key is to find something better to replace your addiction with, right? So anyways, getting back to some of the things that you can do to heal your MS, as I mentioned, strengthen the immune system. You can do that with foods. I mentioned several there. You also want to up your B vitamins, B6, B9, B12, which, they all actually help prevent paralysis, numbness, tingling. They stimulate the nerve endings and fibers, which, have been somewhat deadened for whatever reason. Some foods foods and herbs that are rich in these B vitamins. And by the way, if you are vegan or raw or whatever, I know they want us to believe that B12 can only be found in animal sources, and that is simply not true. In fact, chickweed is super, super high. The debate is still out about seaweed, spirulina, algae, and such, but my personal experience is that, well, I'll just put it this way, I don't have a vitamin B12 deficiency, and I don't eat the foods that, I don't eat meat and dairy and things. So anyways, mushrooms, shiitake are really good for that, as well as beans, legumes, whether they're lima beans, pinto beans, garbanzo beans, peanuts, walnuts, sunflower seeds, turnip greens, asparagus even, seaweed, any type of sea vegetable. And, I do kind of want to bring up when it does come to nuts, seeds, legumes, etc., beans, there is something that's called phytic acid, which actually protects the nut or the bean from being penetrated, kind of like the myelin sheath on our cells, right? So you really want to get in the habit of soaking your beans, even if it is like split peas or lentils, things that, oh, well, we don't need to soak them. They cook up real easy. But the truth is you want to soak those too, as well as quinoa. And that is because it's going to break down the phytic acid. And the phytic acid in itself isn't bad. You're not going to die or, anything like that. However, it does interfere with nutrient absorption. So I made this mistake. I used to eat raw nuts and stuff all the time, and I couldn't figure out why I was losing calcium and zinc and magnesium and vitamin D, and that's what was going on. It literally will bind with it'll bind with your vitamins and minerals, your nutrients, while they're in your intestines before they even get synthesized and move into the bloodstream and feed all the rest of the cells. So it'll bind with it there, and then you just poop it out. Boom. So it was like a waste. So make sure that you do soak your nuts, your beans, even quinoa before you cook them, or toasting your nuts also helps with that as well. Of course, there are other ways to not absorb nutrients properly. Some of these are, digestive issues, gastrointestinal issues, nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, weight loss or gain, things like that. So, alcohol, of course, prescription drugs. So keep an eye on all of that. But, there's also a thing sometimes it's not that you're not getting enough magnesium or vitamin D. It's just that you're not assimilating it. You're not digesting it properly. So before you go and take your vitamin D or calcium or whatever supplement, make sure that you are really assessing what you're eating and how you're eating it. Okay, so what else do we need to do to heal ourselves from MS, strengthen the immune system? You want to kind of limit free radicals. You want to increase your cell energy and feed your cell membranes. And how do you do that? Again, with nutrition, all sorts of things that you can do to feed your cells, whether it's keeping them hydrated properly. Again, never underestimate the power of water, good old-fashioned, beautiful, delicious, clean water, which, is necessary for all life force. And if you are not familiar with Dr. B, I don't even want to butcher his name, but he wrote The Water Cure. And he was a political prisoner. He was a medical doctor and wanted to help people in prison. And obviously he didn't have any drugs or anything accessible to him, thank God, but he didn't know at the time how powerful water was. So the only thing he had to treat his, patients or co-prisoners with was water. And we're even talking prison water too. Maybe that was before they were fluoridated, but he was able to watch symptoms and illnesses disappear just by people getting enough water. So that's definitely one thing that you always want to assess that first. Am I getting enough clean water? Okay, and again, I know there's a lot of, information out there about, oh, my water's being poisoned, I should drink beer instead, or something like that. Again, if you are ingesting that fear vibration, that's what your cells are taking on. So let's say you don't have the best water in the world. Okay, well, you can change that with your own energy. Never forget your hands are wands, okay? So you can use your own energy to love that water, thank it for being there. It's not the water's fault that some dude poisoned it, right? So stop blaming the water, stop blaming the unclean foods or unclean soil or unclean air or all of these things. Take responsibility, put your magic wands to use, express that love, that healing intent, and watch it change before your eyes. Somebody was asking about distilled water. water. I am a proponent of distilled water myself. Again, it's like everything though. Everything that's good for you or not good for you, there's going to be someone out there saying, oh, it's terrible. Oh, it's going to leach nutrients from your body. And, you know, that's a total lie. I'll just say this. I've been drinking distilled water for 5 years, and in that time, I healed myself. I was paralyzed from the waist down. So I prefer distilled water, especially if all you have is tap water with fluoride and chlorine and arsenic and cadmium and lead and all of those wonderful things. However, if you are not able to, let's say that's all you have available and you can't even afford the 87-cent gallon of distilled water or something, there are things that you can do to help remove those chemicals and explosives from your system. One of them is calcium bentonite clay, and make sure it's calcium bentonite, not sodium bentonite, or, you know, and I found often in health food stores, they just label it as bentonite clay, but when you ask them what type of bentonite, they don't know. So I know, I think it's called Lion Legacy. They have an excellent brand of calcium bentonite clay. And you can take a little bit of that in the morning on an empty stomach. Now, first of all, you will not want to use metal, meaning you don't want to stir it with a spoon. The easiest way to do it is to get a shot glass and about a quarter teaspoon per 1 ounce of water. Use like a little bamboo stick, something wooden or plastic. Bamboo sticks and shot glasses work for me. Mix that up and then let it stand for like 5 minutes. And then stir it up again and drink it. The reason you don't want to use metal or anything like that touching it is it'll kind of de-magnify it, but that will bond with the molecules and carry them out of your system. Of course, I'm sure you all know I'm a huge proponent of modifilan, which is the main ingredient is fucoidin. It comes from brown seaweed, and that literally just, I mean, obviously I do other things. I juice, I blend, I eat well, I try to have clean thoughts and I'll, you know, deal with my emotions as they come up rather than suppress them like I did the first 35 years. But this has been proven to not only be able to cleanse from heavy metals, but you know, feed your thyroid gland. It's, in fact, modifilan was actually created during the Chernobyl nuclear catastrophe issues. Some people burned up, shriveled away, and died, and other people looked like they were untouched at all. Well, that's because they were taking fucoidin. You know, that'll also help boost the immune system. It's like rich in 92 different minerals and trace elements, which we are severely lacking, such as iodine, things like that. Many times, just that alone will be enough to help. There's also other ways to clean out heavy metals, cilantro, even chickweed. But I would like to caution you, chickweed is super high in iron, so you really don't want too much of it. But again, it's, you know, that's the thing. When we align ourselves with nature, we have to learn balance. Water is excellent. Water is really, really good for you, but too much, not so good for you. Honey is good for you, good for your immune system. Too much, not so good for you. Sunshine, it's vital. Too much, not so good. So, you know, just moderation is always key. So those are some of the things you can do to kind of remove heavy metals, toxins, and such, as well as, you know, keep that clean body, spirit, and mind. I went over some dietary things that can help you. I guess I can mention some more again. Like lentils are really good, tomatoes are really good, even sweet potatoes, spinach, collards, radish and beet, and turnip greens, you know, think dark leafy greens and such if you're trying to boost your immune system. Also, getting back to the B vitamins, which I mentioned earlier, if you think orange foods, like oranges, cantaloupe, sweet potato, papaya, apricots, things like that. They're also super high, pumpkins, super high in beta carotene, vitamin A, etc. So those are all good choices. But, before you get into this, really you need to kind of look at the keys to lasting change. So, my approach is very gentle. I believe that we should pamper ourselves while healing, whether it's with essential oils, salt baths, getting lots of rest and naps or whatever you need, lots of play, lots of delicious food, and kind of sneak in your medicine, right? Because if you're looking at like, oh my God, I have to go juice turmeric and ginger and, and maybe put some lemon and cayenne and, make it really, really gross and go on this fast, and you're not going to stick with it, right? Does anybody know anyone who's started a diet who was actually stuck with it? No, we all quit. Why? Because they suck. And those are not the keys to lasting change, because we're thinking no pain, no gain, right? We have to torture ourselves. We have to have something, disgusting that'll burn us, like lemon and cayenne or whatever, to make us heal. And that is not true at all. Not even close to being true. You can sneak in your medicine by, what are your favorite fruits? What do you like? Watermelon, grapes, cantaloupe, peaches, whatever it is, stick with that. Throw some herbs in there. What do you like? Do you like tarragon? Do you like basil? Do you like cilantro? Do you like mint? Awesome, because they're all super high in omegas, which again is good for your fatty tissue and for the myelin sheath and for your electrical impulse and neurotransmitters and, this incredible electrical circuitry known as the human body. Essential oils, I guess I can get to that now. We had somebody asked a question in the first hour. Essential oils, do you find them helpful in raising your body energy in megahertz? And absolutely, I do. In fact, I'd like to tell you about a study that was done. But, essential oils, first of all, what we need to understand, again, more is not better. There is such a thing as too much as a good thing. So what you need to understand is that in each drop, there are 40 million trillion molecules. Okay, that is one drop of essential oil. And if you divide that by how many cells are in your body, that's approximately 40,000 molecules for each cell in your body. Now, how do you fit all that in that one tiny drop? Well, obviously, they're super, super small, which gives them their transdermal properties, meaning they can penetrate every layer of skin. Okay, not just the top 3 layers, like even mink oil or things like that. All of these oils that people say are so great, they really don't, you can't treat anything below the skin, so basically they make your skin feel good or maybe even smell good, whatever it is. But yeah, so essential oils, it's getting back to the megahertz things. Our body, megahertz things, you can tell I love science, huh? Okay, so our human body has been measured between 62 and 68. That's normal human body measurements. Your brain is measured at between 72 and 90. Now, when you have a cold or a flu, it drops to like 57 to 58. Candida drops to about 55. Now, Epstein-Barr, which, oh my God, I forgot to bring that up earlier. Allegedly, that's a virus and is purported to possibly being one of the viruses or infections that could lead to MS. I did have that on my notes I wanted to share, but anyways, I forgot. So glad it's coming up here with the essential oils. Anyways, that'll bring you down to about 52. Cancer brings you down to about 42. Now, when it comes to oils like, we'll just go straight to the top. Rose oil is measured at 320 megahertz. Okay, so that's like 4 or 5 times higher vibration than our human body is normally in its resting state. So, you know, if you hear some freak go around and say, "Hey, baby, raise your vibration," we'll pull out some rose oil. That can do it really quick. Lavender oil, something like in the 70s. And, you know, the reason essential oils work so well and so quickly is because our sense of scent is directly linked to the limbic lobe, which you can kind of refer to that as the emotional switchboard of the brain. That's where you have the amygdala that stores and processes emotional memories, as well as the hypothalamus, or also referred to as the master gland regulator, that kind of operates the hormone command center. Your memory functions and survival behavior are also processed in the hippocampus. And then you have the thalamus, which relays sensory impulses to and from the cerebral cortex. So all of these are connected, and it also it secretes like encephalin, which is a painkiller, mood elevator, antidepressant. Then, you know, you have the thalamus, which is thought to be the first part of the brain to receive, you know, joy, happiness, and the fear impulse. So when you inhale these things, they're working directly on your hormones, your emotional memories, you know, the biochemical reactions that, you know, your brain is a pharmacy, naturally, as is any drug that you can get from the drugstore. Your brain already produces better and more of. But this is the thing. If we are so deadened by drugs, whatever type of drug it is, whether you're, say, taking your insulin for diabetes, what is that doing? That's taking the job away from your pancreas. So your pancreas is like, well, screw you, fine, you don't need me, I'm just going to shut down. And so when you are aligned with nature, all of these things fall into place. I mean, have any of you ever been in an accident, a very severe accident, where, you know, if you look back and you look at the pictures, you're like, oh my God, that must have hurt. But really it didn't. Why? Because your brain produced the chemical painkiller that it needed naturally on the spot. So why don't we align with Mother Nature, accept and trust in ourselves and her ability to heal us. Hasn't failed us yet, but okay, so getting back to pamper yourself while you're healing. How can you do that? Again, I mentioned juices, things that you really love, watermelon, grape juice, essential oils, salt baths, flower baths. I love to take mine. I'll just throw some rose and jasmine, sometimes some red clover, marigolds, calendula, throw that in there. And I do kind of want to give you a little tip to make your essential oils baths a little bit smoother. If you haven't noticed, they are not water soluble, meaning if you just throw them in the bath, the drops are going to be, you know, raising to the top. So of the water. So if you're not getting a high quality essential oil, or maybe it is a high quality essential oil, but it's one of those like wintergreen that's going to burn you, it's not going to feel really good when you have welts on your legs. So the best way to pamper yourself with healing salt essential oil baths is you can put the salt or sugar. You can also use this method with tea or anything else. But put the salt in your hands, or even maybe the flowers, and then put the oil, drop the oil onto the salt, and so it will mix with that. Then put it in the water. Now, you know what I'm thinking? We did want to get into stress and anxiety and what was the other one? Depression. So maybe we should work on that for now. I'm just looking at the clock. And you know, stress, again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, some of the symptoms were the exact same symptoms as MS. They were the exact same symptoms of demyelination. Now look at some of the symptoms of stress. Same thing. Moodiness, irritability, depression, anxiety, nervousness, hostility, lack of sense of humor, shortness of breath, skin breakouts, sweaty palms, headaches, indigestion, fatigue, nausea, tight muscles, forgetfulness, loss of concentration. The list goes on and on. So I don't know, if you listen back to everything I shared here on the show, maybe the only disease is stress. I don't know. Again, gosh, there's so much I want to talk about, but I would like to bring your attention to Raymond Francis at beyondhealth.com. He wrote like the best $15 book ever called Never Be Sick Again. And he talks about the only cause of disease is actually malfunctioning cells. And yeah, so stress can cause malfunctioning cells as well as any of these other things we've talked about here tonight, but it is that time. We'll be right back. We'll talk about stress, depression, and anxiety and what you can do about it. All right, welcome back, and thanks for joining us here tonight, Soul Journeys Radio on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. And you know, while I scheduled the show and had all these issues I wanted to address, whether it was MS and neurodegenerative autoimmune diseases, people asking about tips and herbs to quit or reduce smoking, and herbs for stress, depression, and anxiety, I didn't really realize that, you know, whether you're talking about MS, diabetes, heart disease, all these things we've talked about tonight, and smoking, the reason for or a reason to, stress, depression, and anxiety, they all boil down to the exact same thing, same cause, same cure. And again, I was telling you about Raymond Francis before he went to break. I love his book, Never Be Sick Again. He just broke it down really, really basic, plain English, so anybody can understand and heal themselves from anything, literally. But what we need to understand, again, I mentioned earlier, you know, it doesn't matter what you call the disease. You name it anything you want. All it is a conglomeration of symptoms that mean you are out of touch with yourself and nature, period. So once you understand that, I mean, all disease has the exact same cause, therefore the exact same cure. While some might take you a little bit longer to get there and a little bit longer to cure it, you know, it's essentially all the same thing. So I did want to talk to you about stress, and I had mentioned some of the symptoms, and you may have recognized them from earlier in the show when I was talking about some of the symptoms of MS. And stress, unfortunately, is something that just kind of seems to be part of our daily lives anymore. And most people, of course, boil it down to money, work, economy, etc. And it's really hard to remember that, you know, again, we are all exactly where we need to be. When we get over that self-hate, guilt, shame, etc., we will stop shooting on ourselves, right? You know, and that's what we do. Stop shooting on yourself. So what you want to do, I mean, if you're ready to be stress-free, or at least work on it. We're all working on it. I get stressed out and such myself, but we have to go back to the basics. And these are the basics to healing any type of dis-ease. So, you know, remember that thing out there we're supposed to be afraid of, sunshine? Oh yeah, I know, sunspots and solar flares and all these things are going to get us. Well, that's not entirely true. Although, again, too much of a good thing isn't, you know, probably the best for optimal health. However, you know, a couple hours minimum of sunshine every day is beneficial. In fact, people have healed themselves from cancer literally just by going outside, taking their shoes off, putting their feet in the dirt, sitting in the grass and sun gazing. Literally. That's it. No drugs, no herbs, no anything. So it has amazing healing capabilities, never mind that it helps protect us from 77% types of cancers. I know we're taught to fear it. That's right, fear everything outdoors, right? The boogeyman's going to get you, the sun's going to get you, the acid rain or whatever. It's all out to get you. But the truth is, we are Mother Nature. We cannot be disconnected from ourselves and expect to live a full, happy, healthy, connected life. So, we can get back to the basics, water, sunshine, and by the way, in regards to the sun, if you can avoid it, or at least wear a wide-brimmed hat during noontime, that would definitely be preferred. If you are looking for a natural sunscreen, you can make your own with ingredients such as hemp oil or almond oil or coconut oil. Each of those are purported to be or to have between 4 and 8 SPF. If you want to get a little bit, higher in the sun protection there, carrot seed oil has been measured at a 40 SPF, and raspberry seed oil has been measured at 50 SPF. So, of course, the best sunscreen is, a wide-brimmed hat, maybe loose clothing or whatever, but you actually do want to absorb that vitamin D. Somebody was asking earlier something about how many issues or diseases involved vitamin D deficiency. And you know what? I would guess probably every single one. I don't know. I'm not a doctor or a scientist. I can't give you, any special reports. Besides, the experts aren't going to put a report out there saying, vitamin D deficiency is the cause of all disease, so all you need to do is go out and get some sun. That's not about to happen because there is no money in that. But, okay, so getting back to the basics. Play. I mean, I know everybody tells you get out and exercise, right? And you're thinking, we got to go to the gym, which is, full of germs and, egotistical, weird energies sometimes. And, you have no fresh air, no sunshine, all of this, clinical type stuff. So when you're thinking about what to do for exercise, think about what makes you feel good. Turn it into play. Okay, so whether you like to mountain climb, or you like to swim, or you like to spin, or you like to jump, what do you like to do? Rollerblade? Okay, perfect. So you can call it exercise, or you can call it play. Gardening? Come ye as little children. Remember that it's okay to be a kid. Again, it's okay to play in the dirt, in the mud. It's okay to have a food fight. It's okay to climb a tree. It's okay to pick a flower. All of these things are necessary for our growth, okay? So pick out what works for you. Exercise does not necessitate a gym. Just get out there and do something, whatever it is that makes you feel good. So, you kind of want to focus on that. Let's see, what else do we need to do? Getting back to the basics here, if we want to de-stress, we need to learn. Sometimes when we feel stressed, it's because we set too many goals for ourselves. Again, we're shooting on ourselves. We think, I'm this age, so I'm supposed to have this type of house, and I'm supposed to have this type of job paying X amount of dollars, and blah, blah, blah. You know what? Cut out the source. Whatever is making you feel that way, whether it's the TV, whether it's your parents, whether it's a relationship partner, whatever it is, whoever it is that's telling you you are not good enough, or reinforcing your programming that you are not good enough, cut it out at the root. Nip it in the bud. Be gone. Be gone. Always remember, you are exactly perfect, exactly where you are. There are, things you can do such as yoga, or if yoga sounds too new age and airy-fairy to you, call it stretching. Whatever you need to do it. Deep breathing, not those short little shallow breaths that most of us have become accustomed to. I'm talking deep breathing, and especially while stretching. And feel it. Feel it all throughout your body. Breathe into your organs. Feel your skin as a nostril, right? So deep breathing, stress. In fact, I do want to bring this up. I found an article on, this was on the CDC. I'm looking for it right here, right now. Yeah, on the cdc.gov or the PubMed, the National Library of Medicine. But they were actually talking about how yoga and meditation have been helpful with certain diseases, heart disease, atrial fibrillation, etc. They are also admitting that a good diet can help reverse these conditions. So, you know, like I said, start, if yoga sounds too weird for you, start stretching. It's the same thing. Of course, there are different levels to how far you take it, but whatever you do, do it with purpose and do it with intent. So whether you're juicing your watermelon or making your lentils and mushrooms or whatever it is, your fresh garden salsa, do it with love, do it with gratitude, and I promise your cells are going to feel it, and they're going to want more of it. In fact, they'll produce more of it. Give your body the respect that it deserves. I mean, hello. How many of you have actually, like, sat around and thought how magnificent your toes are? I know. We don't really think about it until we stub one, right? But think about it. They have carried all that weight your entire life, you know, keep you sturdy, keep you balanced. You know, they have their roles. They help you climb trees if you're a monkey like me, right? But, I mean, think about it. All of these things, it doesn't need us to figure anything out. Our liver doesn't need us to figure anything out to know its role, to know its function. It doesn't need our mind or any of that. Our liver doesn't need us to make steroids and sex hormones. It does it naturally. Our respiratory system does not need us to breathe. It does it naturally, right? Our eyeballs don't need us to blink our lids. It does it naturally. Our kidneys don't need us to process and remove lactic and uric acid. It does it naturally. All we have to do is align ourselves with that and trust. Give it gratitude. Give it love. Appreciate what it's doing. Thank it. It's, you know, our kidneys don't need us to regulate blood pressure. They don't need it, and they certainly don't need those damn drugs, okay? So just giving you kind of a few examples here. All of these things happen perfectly naturally in nature anyways. So instead of trying to force our way, why don't we just let it happen? Why don't we just let ourselves be as perfect as we are? Yeah. What? You told you laugh too loud, you laugh too much, or people criticizing you. Guess what? Laugh louder. Okay. I mean, if they knew that you're increasing endorphin, serotonin, and cephalin, and all the feel-good chemicals and stuff, you know, maybe they'd start laughing too, but we take things so seriously. And even when it comes to our health, oh, well, I got to read this scientific report, and this is going to give me all the answers. You know what? It's not telling you shit. All it is confusing you and getting you distracted into, you know, that left brain mentality that has to know and understand everything. And again, there is nothing wrong with that. I totally, completely appreciate it. But your pancreas doesn't give a shit what you know in your brain. It is going to convert your food to carbs, fats, and proteins regardless. It is going to regulate the metabolism of glucose regardless. Okay, so forget about all that stuff. Get back to the basics. Love yourself. Feed yourself. Again, things that make you feel good. Okay? You can have the most famous doctor in the world get up there and say, oh, legumes are bad for you. Really? If they were bad for you, you would know it. You would know it because you would eat it and you'd be like, oh, that doesn't feel good. I don't want to do that again, right? And that's part of loving yourself. So who cares what other people say? Who cares what I say? Who cares how I healed myself? That was my path that worked for me. You don't have to do the exact same thing. We are not clone copies of one another. The key to health is trusting yourself, okay, and having that respect for yourself and Mother Nature, knowing that she's going to do what she's going to do. You just have to give her the proper fuel. All right, so I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here. I don't want to get too far off, but I would like to share with you some herbs. Incidentally, these same herbs are also the answer to somebody asked about how they can quit or reduce smoking. These are also excellent herbs for depression, stress, and anxiety. Oh, man, time is flying. I'm going to have to do this more often. Hang on. We'll be right back and talk about some of those herbs after this short break. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us here tonight. Wow, moving right along. Lots of information. I always do this. I think, oh, we're going to be able to talk about all these things, and I barely scratched the surface. I did want to mention some herbs and oils that can help with the cessation of smoking or stress, anxiety, or depression. However, we were having a discussion during the text chat, and some pretty, I think, important revelations came up in there. Again, it's less about what you take or what you eat as it is how you do it. And, we kind of came to the realization that all of these issues, disease, whatever, all boils down to self-hatred, guilt, shame, etc. And the key, if you don't want to be sick, if you don't want to be stressed, if you don't want, any of these things that we're talking about, your life spinning out of control, we need to learn to love and accept ourselves exactly where we are. We have to kind of give ourselves permission to not be perfect, right? Okay, so yeah, the Joneses might have this or might have a special talent in, X, but you have a special talent in Y, okay? Apples are great, so are fish. Fish aren't apples, never will be, okay? Same thing with humans and individuality. So we really have to get past that, and you know what? It is difficult. There is no magical cure for that. There's no magical herb, oil, or anything. It takes being conscious of it. And once you notice those negative self-talk patterns, then you can kind of talk back at yourself. Ha ha ha, self, you thought you were going to get that over on me, but I'm listening, and, laugh at it. And realize, when you catch yourself saying something negative like, oh my gosh, I can't do a show alone. I don't have anything important to say. Why would anyone want to listen to me, right? Yeah, I say that. Some of my fears, I'm still chipping away too. And I have to remind I'll catch myself and I'll try to turn it around. So I will remind myself by either aligning with positive people who lift me up, not bring me down, or maybe even look at some beautiful testimonials or something to remind me, wait, I have value and I'm worthy too. Or if if it's one of those, oh, I'm so ugly, I'm so fat, I'm so old, I'm so whatever, when I catch myself, I just turn it around and say the opposite. And then, I laugh at it and I'm conscious of it so I can make a decision, and do whatever best makes me feel good, and a lot of that is learning to say no, setting boundaries. I mean, every single time we do something in our life, every time we say yes, where we really mean no, we're not only giving away pieces of our soul, we are stressing ourselves out, we are telling ourselves, self, you don't know shit. I don't have to listen to you. These other people know best. Yet you expect that same self to take care of you when you're not taking care of it? Think about it. So, okay, if you are in a situation where you feel forced or pressured into doing things you don't want to do, whether it's a job you hate or a relationship, whatever it is, know that it is okay to say no. Know that you will always make it, no matter how destitute or dark or dreary or whatever things might seem. Let me remind you, there I was in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the waist down, my children feeding and clothing me. I did not take any government assistance. I had no, rich ex-husband or daddy or this and that to pay my bills. I had no job and two children to feed. And you know what I did? I hopped in my car and drove across the country looking for a new home. I know it's crazy. I don't recommend this to everyone. Actually, yes, I do. Because it's every time you take those risks, you reinforce your divinity, the magic of nature and coming aligned with your true self. So, never be afraid to say no or take those risks or do whatever you need to do. They do get easier. I'm looking at the clock and I wanted to go through some of the herbs. Again, these are interchangeable, whether you want to use them for you just feel stressed or anxious or depressed, or you want to use them to quit smoking. I'll start off with skullcap. And skullcap was actually Dr. Shook. I don't know how long ago it was. He said that skullcap is a slow-working but sure remedy for practically all nervous afflictions, but must be taken regularly over a long period of time for permanent benefit, okay? So when you're dealing with herbs and oils and things like that, it's not like a Percocet where you take one pill, you feel it right away, and boom, you're healed, you never have to deal with it again. No, it's something you want to incorporate into your lifestyle changes, those baby steps leading to lasting change. So, it is also an antibacterial, an antispasmodic, a nervine, a sedative, a tonic, which means it, is excellent to clean out your blood. It'll help calm the nervous system. It does have narcotic properties, but it's not going to get you high. And in fact, it does have properties similar to tobacco as well. So if you are using it to quit smoking, maybe you can make a tea with it. It'll help you reduce the cravings and anxiety. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, where do I go? Shoot. Okay, here's another one. I guess I won't spend too much time on that, but I'll tell you a little bit about valerian, which also is an antispasmodic, tonic, sedative, nervine as well. It's been used for centuries, in fact, to calm, cure nervous disorders, also sleep disorders and such. It'll help you if you are feeling anxious, not getting enough rest, feeling stressed, or you want to quit smoking. I think at this point in time, with the time left, I'm just going to have to list a bunch of herbs that you can use. You can use these as a tea. This is for quitting smoking. Lobelia. Also licorice, anise, or sassafras. In fact, you can actually just chew on it when you get that physical craving. Passion flower, plantains, and mullein, which will also heal the lungs and help you heal. But I also want to make a point that, you know what, guys? It's not the tobacco that's killing you. It is the 4,000 chemicals they put in it. So there are other things that you can do, such as grow your own or trade with somebody who does. I do want to bring this up. I brought this up in a previous show, and you can find the link on souljourneysradio.com. I did a history of the sacred and medicinal uses of tobacco, but even Walter Reed Army Medical Clinic boasted over 50 medicinal uses for tobacco, including cancer, kidney stones, rheumatism, colds, tonsillitis, inflammation, uterine and breast diseases, headaches, abscesses, labor pains, psoriasis, ringworm, scabies, carbuncles, poisoning, toothaches, etc. Can't go through all of them, but tobacco, just like any other herb, was medicine before we poisoned it. So kind of keep that in mind. Do you really want to quit, or do you really want to reduce it? Some people in my life have quit by smoking homegrown, organic, chemical-free tobacco, because once you try real tobacco, you can never go back to a cigarette. Or ceremonial blends, whether it's a mugwort, wormwood, mullein, datura damiana, that helps them kick the habit for cigarettes. Some other herbs that might help with that. Again, you can make a tea or a tincture. Valerian is excellent. And by the way, valerian is how they made what? Valium. Of course, valerian is much better in its natural state. Skip the blue pill. St. John's wort is another one to help you quit smoking or for depression, anxiety, or stress. And the amazing thing is all of these herbs are excellent for MS symptoms. So I thought that was kind of astonishing when you all gave me the questions you wanted me to address tonight. And I put the show together. I'm finding out, oh my God, they really are interchangeable. So I hope I was able to help you out at least a little bit today. Some other herbs are oat straw. You can make a tea with that. That's also very good for preventing degenerative diseases, super high in calcium, high in silica, etc. Milk thistle is another one, which they said in 1597, the famous herbalist Gerard said that it's the best remedy that grows against all melancholy disease. And I guess while I'm getting cut off here, I'll finish it off with some essential oils that might be able to help you with either of those. Jasmine, rose, orange, neroli, sandalwood, lemon, basil, bergamot, clary sage, geranium, frankincense, lavender, ylang-ylang, geranium, angelica, basil, juniper, lime, marjoram, rose, cedarwood, chamomile. Then you got some damiana, ginseng, blessed thistle, lemongrass, wild lettuce, catnip, rosemary, passion flower, peppermint, kelp, catnip, and I guess that's all I can fit in here. Thank you all very much for listening to me ramble tonight. It was fun. We will see you tomorrow night here on SoulJourneysRadio.com.